So the draft is finally over. Went by pretty quick. So this is the next day, of course, being on Sunday. Want to make my review. First, I want to start off with my own team for the Bills. I'm not going to do a breakdown for every single team. Maybe I'll try and do that. I'm not sure. Another video I will be planning on doing is breaking down at least the teams that I think that did well, and also teams that I think that kind of missed their mark in this year's draft. But start off with, again, I want to start with my team with the Buffalo Bills and grade and kind of break down each pick and tell you how my thoughts, my reactions, and how I think they will do. So going into this, we didn't have a lot of picks. We had 7 or 6, 6 I think. Well, by the time the draft started, we had 6 picks: first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. Got not too much, on the lesser side of picks. I mean, I know in our division, Miami had less. They had 4 because, of course, the Tyreek Hill trade. They had the forfeit one. Also, they had Bradley Chubb for the trade. They gave up a first round pick for them too. So they had less picks than we did, but nonetheless, we had less. So going into it was very challenging to see how this was going to play out. And starting off with the first round pick was probably one of the most shocking ones. Was Dalton Kincaid falling to 25. Now, originally, we had the 27th overall pick. We traded 2 spots up ahead of Dallas with Jacksonville at 25. We gave up, we switched first-round picks and then gave up a 4th to move up 2 spots. And, to many people, they believe that we stole him from Dallas, who was probably planning on taking him with their pick. They ended up picking Smith from Michigan. So my initial thoughts was I didn't love the pick at first. There was rumblings, throughout the whole process that they did talk to the tight ends, Kincaid, of course, being one of them. And some people threw out the possibility that, hey, Buffalo could draft a tight end in the first round. I was not in love with this pick because I saw, at least last year, how underutilized Dawson Knox was. Paid him, and going back to last offseason, they paid him big money, rightfully so, in my opinion. I think he's a great tight end. Some people believe that, also, talking to other Bills fans, some people believe that Kincaid is better than Dawson Knox, but I'm still very high on Knox. I think he's a great tight end. I just don't think he's utilized as much as he should. And this was my worry for Kincaid. I thought, well, if you're not going to use Knox as much as you have, and he's a starting tight end, you pay him big money, what are you going to do with the second tight end that you select in the first round? Is he going to get less? And they are, in their own ways, they are different type of style tight ends. Size-wise, very similar. See, Kincaid is 6'3", 246, around the same size as Dawson Knox. But at first, did not love it. My dream pick would have been any of the receivers besides Quentin Johnson. I think my biggest one was probably going to be Jordan Addison. I loved him. I think he'll be a great wide receiver. I wouldn't be upset either way if Jackson Smith and Jigba or Zay Flowers fell to us. But sadly, it did not work out. At first, it looked like it was because through the first 19 picks, no receiver was taken, nor was there a tight end taken. And it was very shocking. I thought the receivers were going to go off early, especially Jackson Smith. I think I had him at one point in my last mock draft. I think I had at 11 or 12 to Texans or Tennessee before, of course, all the trades happened during the draft. But I was starting to get happy. I was starting to get excited. It looks like we're gonna land one of these picks, one of these wide receivers. It's gonna be exciting. Pair him up with Stephon Diggs. It's gonna be awesome. Then he started coming off the board. So the first one was pick 20 with Seattle. That was Jackson Smith. Second pick for 21 was Quentin Johnson. 22 was Zay Flowers to Baltimore, and 23 was the player I was hoping, Jordan Addison to Minnesota. So very quickly, the first 19 picks we had no wide receivers. The next 4 picks in a row, all wide receivers, all the big name wide receivers in this draft taken, and it was tough. It was tough seeing that. I was very upset, especially for Addison. For me, I think that's a great pickup for Minnesota. I think he'll be an excellent wide receiver from alongside with Justin Jefferson. I think you should watch out his name for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Of course, the ones that are going to be in the top contention is the quarterbacks, no doubt. That's obvious, but if you had to take quarterbacks away and look at the skill positions for Offensive Rookie of the Year, I think no doubt Jordan Addison could be one of those guys, especially when a lot of people are going to put pressure on Justin Jefferson, who is the reigning Offensive Player of the Year. going to be entering the season. So there's going to be less pressure from Addison. I think great route runner, a tad bit smaller, 6 foot, just barely over 170, which was his concern, but I think he'll be a great wide receiver. Without getting too caught up in that, going back to this, I was very upset that Minnesota took him. So I was looking at the draft board, and I saw Anton Harrison from Oklahoma could be a spot here. Maybe Osiris Torrance was still on the board. But we trade up 2 spots, and we select Dalton Kincaid. Again, at first, I wasn't in love with this pick, but the more I kind of, as the days gone on, the more I looked at it, it does look like a great selection. So to bring up his stats, he had 70 receptions for 890 yards, 8 touchdowns. Pro Football Focus graded him a 90.2. He had 401 snaps this season, 104 to in line with the offensive line. But more importantly, this is how we're going to use him, 221 at the slot. And I think the theory is, or how to look at Kincaid is, we're going to use him as a slot receiver, basically. Pair him up alongside with Dawson Knox and maybe have a 2 tight end set as we play. And that could be potentially lethal because I'm very high on Knox. People are very high on Dalton Kincaid. Some people already throw the possibility out there as he's Travis Kelce. I don't want to go that far. I don't want to put that much praise on him. But he did have a game this last year, the first matchup between USC, and I get college for defenses, especially for USC. I get it if you want, if you want to put, say it's not as great because there's not as great of defense on, for a lot of teams. But this is still unbelievable, no doubt. So in the first matchup for USC, Kincaid ended up with 16 catches for 234 yards and a touchdown. Travis Kelce-esque dominance, as tweeted by a Bills fan that I follow. Or Bills fan page. That game, no doubt, is Travis Kelce-esque. That is pure dominance that Kelce has shown game in and game out. And if he could be even close to that, if you want to say even 80% of Travis Kelce, that's unbelievable. The knock on him was injuries. Hopefully, he can really turn it around and fix that. That's it's a thing of the past. But no doubt, it is a great offensive weapon for Josh Allen, especially having a 2 tight end set, which Dallas ran last year and the year before, which was very lethal, at least for their sake, especially for Dalton Schultz. So no doubt, Kincaid could definitely be an amazing addition for this team, especially with his skill set. People regard him as the best pure catcher in this draft. Regarded as, at least also on my board, as you saw in my mock draft, as the number 1 tight end in this year's draft, and I had him mocked to the Packers. So if you look at it from that standpoint, if you want to go off of my mock draft, that's a huge steal because I had going from 13, he drops to 25. So no doubt, again, I think it's gonna be interesting how they utilize him and Knox. But I think they will try and, especially investing at high of a capital in him alongside paying big money to Knox. I think that in a way it's a good thing because it forces them to find ways to scheme him up instead of, drafting him and kind of playing him aside like the last play, some of the players last year like Cook and stuff like that. It's we just put him to the background, and then halfway through the season, then we finally realize we can utilize this guy somehow. So for this one, it forces them to have to make a scheme up because they put so much capital into these 2 guys, especially Kincaid being their first round pick. They're gonna have to find a way to do this, and I think I like that. It pushes the Ken Dorsey to make adjustments on the offense, and I think. I don't want to go crazy and say Kincaid's going to have an amazing season or he's going to be the best offensive player, offensive rookie of the year. No, he should be in consideration as well, as I mentioned with Jordan Addison, depending on how things play out, how they can utilize him. He can definitely be in that conversation. So going to the next pick, which is I was the most excited out of all of them, was Osiris Torrance. Originally, like in my previous mock drafts, not my last one, but probably the 2 before, I had Torrance as a first round pick, and many people did have him as a first round pick as well. A lot of people mock drafting him to Buffalo because of the need of offensive line. Big size, 6'5", 330. Picked that, of course, the second round, round 59 to be exact. Pro Football Focus gave him an 88 rating. He had 698 snaps this year. Has 0 sacks, not just for this year, but his career, his last 3 years. That's in total. He had 2,206 total snaps, 0 sacks throughout his whole career. Amazing. That is dominant. In that span too, he's also let 1 QB hit through the whole process. Again, amazing. And 14 hurries. that's dominance, especially, they say he's, very great at the, especially for the run. And I think this is a huge pickup because just like myself and many others had him as a first round grade. So the fact that he fell all the way to the late second round for us to pick him up, that's huge. And we have invested a lot in the offensive line for this year. The big one being Connor McGovern from Dallas. We took him a 3-year deal. I don't know how it's going to play out with him exactly, if he'll be a starter or not, or just in the rotation. We also signed someone else from the Rams. I'm not sure who the name is offhand. I apologize, but we did sign a guard for a 1-year deal from the Rams. The biggest one was, of course, Connor McGovern for a 3-year deal. So the fact that you add Osiris Torrance to that mix, that's going to be huge, not just for Josh Allen, but for the running game in general for Dalvin Cook. Also, the other running backs that we signed Damian Harris. We still have Nyheim Hines. I'm not sure how much he's going to be used for that. Reggie Gilliam, not too much for the running ability. Sometimes they sometimes do throw out to him, but the most part is me for James Cook and Damian Harris. So no doubt huge for him and for Josh Allen. So the fact that they got essentially 2 first-round picks in the first two rounds, it's amazing because many people had Torrance as a first-round grade, and the fact that he falls to Buffalo makes even the Kincaid pick even better because I was worried they should have took offensive line at that point, especially Anton Harris, who eventually 2 picks later, an original pick, the Jaguars took at 27. So the fact that you get Torrance and Kincaid in the first 2 rounds, that's amazing. So moving to the next one, Dorian Williams, 3rd round, 91st overall. A tad bit undersized, and this reminds me of Terrell Bernard from last year from Baylor. Sugar Bowl MVP, that was his big thing. Many people said undersized. He was used for special teams. And people didn't like that because they thought it was a waste of a pick of the 3rd round. And some people are kind of thinking that same way too with Dorian Williams. 6'1", 228. People say, he also has special teams on him too. So it reminds me of a mirror of last year with Terrell Bernard. And maybe we'll see a combination of both this year. The big thing was tackling machine, which is huge. Terrell Edmunds missed a good amount of tackles, and especially definitely got better this year, but throughout his career was bad at instincts, bad at the running game at times. So this is kind of the flip side. Even though he's smaller, it is a flip side for him. Pro Football Focus gave him 83.3 for his rating. He had 97 tackles, 36 assists, but he had 12 missed tackles. For him being lined up on defense, he had 53 snaps on the defensive line, 38 at the slot, 2 at the corner, and 756 at the box. He was also used 95 times in pass rush snaps and 387 times on run defensive snaps. He was the leader of the defense, captain. Definitely helped turn that program around. And again, it's going to be very interesting to see if he can live up to that because, in the way he kind of reminds me of, I don't want to say Matt Milano, but just like, a similar style. Like they were hoping, Matt Milano, a tad bit undersized, but no doubt all-pro linebacker, one of the best in the NFL. And hopefully that this can be the next one of that. I'm not sure about, again, how it's going to play out between him and Terrell Bernard, but just kind of seeing the flip side of him, especially with the tackling and instincts. A lot of people say very instinctive for him, how he plays. That's going to be huge. And again, very interested to see how that linebacking core plays on the defense. Because we were, in my opinion, not in my opinion, but talking about my off-season outlook, I had a lot of the players in free agency leaving. I had Poyer and Edmunds leaving. So the thing that really shocked me was that Poyer came back for a 2-year deal, but not surprisingly, Trey Edmunds left. I think it got overpaid. I don't think the Bills were willing to pay that money. I think it was 5 years, $70 million, $50 million guaranteed. I'm okay with that, but passing on him. Again, I don't think he's worth the money. We'll see how he does in Chicago, but at the same time, too, it's still a big void to fix, to fill nonetheless. Again, big size, 6'5", huge linebacker. So for this one, we'll see how Dorian Williams plays along with Terrell Bernard. I think he will also be in that rotation if they do that. So next one was a little bit of a surprising pick was Justin Shorter, wide receiver out of Florida, 5th round pick. And of course, we didn't have a 4th round pick because we traded up for Kincaid. We also made a couple trades throughout the process too, especially after Shorter. Got 2 or 3 more picks in the next year's draft, which I think we're at 10 or 11 10 or 11 total draft picks in next year's draft, which is interesting. Very different from 6 this year to 10 or 11 next year. But nonetheless, sticking with the draft, we had Justin Shorter. 6'5", 230, like I said, played at Florida. Also split times between Penn State and Florida. He started his career in 2018 with Penn State, a former 5-star recruit. Played 2 years there, transferred, and played the last 3 years at Florida. For the most part, riddled with injuries. Nothing too spectacular in terms of stats, especially last year. He had 51 targets for 29 receptions, 577 yards, 2 touchdowns. PFF had him at a 74 for his grade. Got a huge size. I like the potential, especially very physical wide receiver. People say. Obviously, there was a picture of he had a shirt off flexing, and a lot of people reminded them instantly of DK Metcalf because it just looked like he just shredded. Again, physical wide receiver, and I think that's definitely a different change of pace of what we had in a while. Definitely, I think we definitely do need that, a huge wide receiver. I don't know how he's going to pan out, but it's high upside because again, former 5-star recruit. Obviously, he has the talent and the capability of being that because he was viewed that by colleges. Sadly, it just didn't pan out for the NFL through college because of just injuries and so forth. Got nothing too crazy for his career. Last year, too, he had over 500 yards receiving. And after that, it was basically nothing before that. So his 2 great years was back-to-back over 500 yards receiving, a couple touchdowns, nothing too crazy, but again, very high upside with him, no doubt. Already signed a couple of receivers in the free agency. Obviously, the one was Deontay Hardy. Another one was Trent Sherfield. So again, it's going to be very interesting to see how he fits in that scheme. He also picked up a Arizona State wide receiver. I forget what his name is offhand, but 6'6". I saw his height, insane. So I like they are trying to find big receivers. I don't know what's going to happen with Shorter. If there's a chance he's guaranteed on the roster, I don't know. Be interesting to see how he plays in the preseason with Josh Allen or in training camp. But again, obviously, people were upset because they thought there was much better talent, especially A.T. Perry, if I have his name right, was still on the board, and people were upset that we passed up on him for Shorter. But again, very high upside, very physical wide receiver. It'd be interesting to see how he plays out. So after concentrating back, we drafted another guard, Nick Broeker, if I have that right, from Ole Miss, 6'4", 305. PFF had him a 65.2 for his rating. He had 1,016 snaps this season, 0 sacks, 6 hits, 13 hurries. Again, just adding depth to the offensive line. Like what I just said for O'Cyrus Torrence, I don't know too much about him, so I don't want to comment a lot. I'm trying to talk about him. I'm basically going back to O'Cyrus Torrence. We invested a lot in guard this year. We signed a couple offensive linemen. Of course, drafted Torrence in the second round. Trying to bolster that part, especially trying to figure out when we had injury problems. So trying to find people to rotate and also people to step up if needed. So Nick Broeker, again, not bad. I said over 1,000 snaps, only had 6 hits and allowed 6 hits and 13 hurries, 0 sacks. Though the previous 2 seasons he did allow sacks. I think the year before was 4, and the year before that was 2 sacks. So definitely cleaned it up this year with 0, alongside with O'Cyrus Torrence. So again, very developmental offensive lineman. We'll see what he can do with that. So next, going to the final pick of the 2023 draft was Alex Austin, cornerback out of Oregon State, round 7, 252 to be exact. Again, just depth at corner. Nothing too crazy. Again, I don't know too much about him, so I don't want to comment a lot on him. But I'll just give you the stats. He did give PFF to give him a 72.5 for his rating. For snaps, he had 645 at corner, 73 at the box, 28 the slot. For targets this year, he was targeted 69 times. He allowed 42 receptions for 529 yards, 2 touchdowns, but also recorded 2 interceptions. His passer rating was 82.3. Not great. You look at the previous seasons of 2021, 76.6, and then 2020 was 119.5. So again, not a crazy pick. I mean, we'll see what happens with him in training camp. Again, I don't know if he's guaranteed to be on the roster, but again, I think it just added depth. I think they were just just picking what best available in their opinion. I was kind of hoping in later round. I think he was taken in 5 or 6 was Toto. I can't pronounce his last name. It was the linebacker from Alabama that went to Houston. I was hoping that he would have fell to us and selected him with especially Dorian Williams, because I think one person on NFL on the channel, they did have him compare him to Matt Milano, at least for their board, or kind of basically giving their brief comments about him. They have Matt Milano in there, so it would have been interesting to see if he would have if he fell to Buffalo, if that would have been a pick. But I think that was before Nick Broker when we selected him. But for Alex Austin, again, just depth. Nothing too crazy. I mean, obviously, if he turns out great, it's amazing. If not, it's not to be expected. But for this one, again, very different change of pace for this draft. Very offensive minded, especially for weapons. Again, tight end. So we say a tight end, 2 offensive linemen, and a wide receiver, and only 2 picks being defense, which is surprising because the years past it's been pretty defensive minded, though it hasn't worked out. We'll see this year as we got rid of Leslie Frazier, if Sean McDermott can step up and retool a defense and have him play better, especially offense too for Ken Dorsey. Hopefully he can retool that and play better as well with the additions with Dalton Kincaid, Osiris Torrance. Don't expect too much for Justin Shorter, but I'll throw him in there as well. Nick Broker as well. We'll see what happens with him. For all these guys, I mean, the biggest one probably too is Dorian Williams, to see what happens at linebacker. If he is the middle linebacker, he played outside for college, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Fitzgerald, Bernard, or Williams. But we'll see. Overall, I think it's a great draft. I do agree with people saying this is probably one of the best drafts we've had in a while. You could definitely say, yeah, since 2018 from drafting Josh Allen. After that, I think it's been a while since we've really used a lot of capital early on for offense, especially if you look at since Brandon Beane's been here for the Buffalo Bills. This is his second time drafting an offensive player in the first round. First being, of course, Josh Allen. But if you want to take him away, this is like the first offensive weapon, offensive skill position he's ever taken since he's been with the Bills in the first round. If you want to say technically Stephon Diggs for the trade, okay, I guess you can say that. But in terms of actually drafting somebody, it was nice to see he really changed, different change of pace. And I think it seems like they're starting to figure out how the NFL is going. It's very offensive minded. People are putting a lot of capital on the offensive side, and I think the Bills are starting to realize that. But also getting defensive players as well. Kansas City did that as well, getting defensive players alongside with drafting offensive for Mahomes. But I think definitely this is a huge step in the direction for us to get Torrance to really bolster the offensive line, get Kincaid another great weapon, hopefully Travis Kelce if he can pan out. But for this one, I'm gonna give this A minus. If you want, if you think I'm being too generous, I'll say B plus. But I think A minus is good here. I don't want to say it's the best draft, but it's definitely up there as one of the best drafts for teams this year. I'm definitely excited how these guys pan out. But let me know your thoughts down below on the draft picks. If you like them, if you don't, please explain for either or why you like the player, why you don't, who you think we should have went instead. But without further ado, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.